Welcome, Christian, on our Pratirod podcast. Pratirod means resistance in English.
Namaste. I'm happy to be here and thanks for welcoming me on your podcast.
You, as a theater person from Germany, right?
Right.
So you have been recently visiting Nepal. Is it the first time?
It's the very first time in this country, in this part of the world. So, as you said before, I'm a theater person. I travel a lot in my mind and in many stories, but
Just on your mind or
Yeah.
physically?
also I love to travel because it's a way to learn. It's a way to listen to stories, to see, and to enrich my background, to fill many new ideas and to work with that later on.
Okay. Have you ever come to the eastern part of the globe before?
I did once. I had the very big luck and opportunity to go to China.
Did you go?
So I went 1 year before we had this big pandemic worldwide. I could go to Beijing and to see also some other parts of this big country. Something
Alright.
like your neighbor's country, if
All right.
that's right.
You have been close friend to Theatre Village Nepal and with our director, Bimal Subedi. So how long is your friendship?
The friendship dates back to a visit of Bimal in a winter when I was working in Weimar. Weimar is a small city in the heart of Germany, and Bimal is he was sent by a friend from Berlin to come to visit me, and since that it's now more than 6-7 years old.
It's a long year of friendship.
It's a long year with a lot of pause because everybody of us does its own work. We are living in our own worlds. But a second very important moment to meet each other was when the theater village, the whole company came to visit us in Rudolstadt, my hometown, also close by.
What was the
Weimar.
year they visited you?
I think it was 2017, as I remember right. We had a big festival called Theaterwelten in German, or Theater Worlds in translation into English. A festival where we invite people and groups from different continents.
You
to
were one of the
teach.
organizers there?
Yeah, I'm one of the organizers based in this place and also a kind of leading through these days. So I'm involved in this wonderful event to welcome people and to learn from each other. That's the idea of it.
Thank you for inviting Theatre Village to your country and to your festival, to your beautiful purpose of theater practice.
And I would add...
We have been honored.
In the other way around as well, I would say thank you, Theatre Village, thank you, Bimal, and all these wonderful people, actresses and actors, to come and to share your art, to give us a window towards the big art of Nepal we really have to learn about, and we don't know almost nothing about it. So it was the biggest opportunity to see it back then, and now I'm here to learn, to continue learning, to continue watching theater, speaking with people, and so I'm sitting next to you, and yeah.
You're most welcome. All
Thank
right.
you.
With this, we will begin our conversation. You have been known as a theater person, and I don't know much about you. We too have been introduced just a few days ago, and we have been continuously meeting. But the introduction about yourself, about the description about yourself, is very little known. So I want to ask you about yourself, how you started working in the theater fraternity in Germany, and how you have been working there. So can you tell us about yourself?
So I go back then to my birth. No, don't fear about that. I was born as a small child with the name of Christian Schröter in a little village in the eastern part of Germany, in a time when we had two Germanys. So we had a kind of called Iron Curtain, or
Where
the
did
Wall
you
of
belong?
Berlin. It's, as I said, this small city, Rudolstadt, which is in Thuringia.
Was it East Germany or West
Exactly.
Germany?
Yeah, East Germany.
East Germany.
So under Russian occupation,
Yes,
Soviet
under communist
occupation.
occupation. All right.
So we were reigned by a kind of socialist communist party. becoming a theater person, it of course took some time. I started with the age of 15.
15?
Yeah.
That was the age you began?
I started to perform in in a local group of non-professionals. And I think my first role was actually a clown in a fairy tale kind of.
You did a clown?
Yeah.
All right.
They put a red nose on my face. And time by time, by playing, I learned a lot by the audience, especially by the children, how to interact with them. Because the specialty on this clown was not to speak, just with your hands, your mimic, your gesticulations. And then in the following years, I continued to work on that. So I studied pantomime, I studied a clownery to get more skills in this way of telling stories without any words. And then later on, I also started to teach to do drama, theater, to use, of course, words.
All right. I want to ask you something. You were born in the eastern part of the Germany, the then East Germany, which
Yes.
was occupied by the communist, let's say, political ideology.
Right.
How was the scenery of theatrical activities at that time in the East Germany?
In my experience as a child, and now knowing a bit more about history, I would say theater was an important part to educate people in this part. It was an important part in our daily life because in German culture, we have a strong connection until now to the art of theater, to the art telling stories while acting. So in this area, I was born, grown up, as well as in many other areas of Germany. We have many buildings built specially for watching theater and for playing theater. It is, to go back just for a short time in our history, it is a part of the many kingdoms and dukedoms we had in this country. We call it today Germany, like 300 years ago, 200 years ago, when every king, every duke tried to impress the others with an own way of culture. So they, of course, they read all this Greek stuff. They read all the big texts, the big stories, and they tried to and educate and entertain each other with that. Later on, in the time when I was born, we had already a big culture. There are people like Bertolt Brecht, who became quite famous. But even then, when the first theater was founded, it was Goethe. Maybe he's also well known in this part of the world. He's for us something like the most important poet living and based in Weimar, in this little town. Bimal did visit me, and yeah, that's the short.
All right. What have you been doing as a theater person at the moment in Germany? Can you explain about it?
Of course, my work is mainly in these days based on working with non-professionals. So when I started trying to live on theater, I started to collect people, non-professionals, meaning people who work to fulfill their jobs in the daily life. But in the evening, they gather, they meet, and they produce something.
Right.
At the moment, I'm
They have
working
their distinct job. Besides it, they also do theater.
Exactly.
Those are called non-professionals.
Yeah.
Okay, you deal with them. You train them, or
exactly. There's two things, I would say it like that. At the moment, I'm not working in the place I'm born, but eastern of Germany, in a place where we have a national community, a minority. They speak another language, not German, and they have a very old and rich culture as well, kept in this very small community. And what we do is there we play. At first, of course, we rehearse, we do a lot of training for the boys, for the different roles, for the body. And what we are doing right now is, we settled already a performance and we play it in different villages. So we are a little bit like nomads going from one village to the other village and to show it to the audience in their language, not in German, and in different, let's say restaurants, guest houses, That is one thing
Are
I
there
do.
different native languages in Germany as well?
We have mainly German. Our country, because of history, is kind of, say it in a bad way, cleaned by all the minorities we had before. But officially, our country, in our country, exists 4 minorities, which are mostly on the border to other countries, like to Denmark in the north. There's a Danish
All
community,
right.
and in this special case, in the area on the east, there's one community which exists only there. They don't have another country. They have only Germany as a country, but speaking a
What are they called?
Slavian language, they called Sorbs, Sorbian
Sorbs.
people.
Sorbians. All
Yeah.
right. All right.
And the community is quite small. It's just 60,000 people,
All right.
but with an own culture of theater, an own culture of music, of dancing. So this is quite interesting for me. So I can do researches my own country, but finding out something which I did not knew before.
Okay. So I want to ask you a question. You talked about working with non-professionals. You yourself, are you a professional or a non-professional about in terms of theater?
That's a good question. We discuss a lot in Germany about, because in our country we divide theater into 2 parts. One is the professional career, where you study to become either an artist, as actor, actress, or as a director or dramaturgy. You're doing this. The other way,
Those are the professionals.
those are the professionals.
All right.
But also people call us engaged in theater professionals when we get money for what we do. This is something like friends of mine, they studied whatever, philosophy, theology, German, English language, and they became director and directress. So they did not study directing, but they are professional directors. Because this is kind of, they're called professionals because they work on a professional theater, which is a kind of special thing in Germany. That there is, founded by the state or supported by the state, a house with a group of people, actors, actresses. They're running the whole year, performing different plays, and it's just a job to perform. That's one thing. The other thing is, like, my career was also on the other side, performing in my leisure time, just as a kind of hobby to do it. Because now you can laugh about me. What I learned after finishing school was just a carpenter. So in front of you, there sits just a simple carpenter who's working with wood, who is, doing all these things to build windows, doors, tables, furniture, and restoration. But beside all my daily work, I did, and later on I studied, but also I studied something else, like geography and intercultural exchange. Beside all that, I performed. I organized festivals. I gave workshops. I learned from people. So this is the other non-professional way. With time, like when at the time Bima met me, I already worked for the theater. They invited me to work there as a theater pedagogue. And so coming back to this, how I ended up in theater, besides studying, for example, I worked in a circus. With,
You worked in the circus?
Yes.
For how many years?
For 4 years.
All right.
And it was not just a simple circus with a big tent. We had a circus with special artists. The artists were people with mentally illness, like Down syndrome. This circus, it's called Sonnenstich in German. It's like to be affected by sun in a nice way. It made its own shows with a lot of artistical movements, not droppy, like hanging from the ceiling.
You know all this?
Not
Do you
all.
know?
Not all. I'm specialized on working on stills, I think it's called. When you really
Can you still walk?
Yeah, of course. I teach it. I can walk it. I perform with
We
that.
will definitely.
It's
We hope to see the demonstration
It's-
one day.
you will. And people working like juggling, like what else? On big balls, on big many ways to tell stories in a in an artistic way. But the unique thing is, we included people who are usually put on this side of the society, who are excluded because they are ill, they don't belong to this society. Those 4 years for me was a very important time to learn about pedagogic, how to teach, how to enable, motivate someone to do something, how to find out a talent of someone who's told before, you don't know anything, you're not able to do anything. And with all this experience, I ended up later on in a theater for children and youths. And then later on, right now, I'm working for a professional theater, which is bilingual for Germans and for Sorbian people.
All right. So you have cured a lot of the things that you experience in your life and how it has the significance in your life and the culture, the practice of Germany. So let's enter. You talked about two forms of professions as a theater practitioner. One is professional and one is non-professional. And uh, with this, we can enter with the theater culture of Germany. And it is said that Germany is one of the richest countries in terms of theatrical practices. It has a long history and a lot of practices, and even we study about different forms and styles of art. And one I now remember is German expressionism, very popular in art form, right? There were a lot of scholars as well in
Yeah.
terms of art literature. So I want to ask you, how rich or is the culture of Germany or German theater or German theatrical culture? How rich is it? How do you explain it?
I would say we are lucky, very lucky and blessed in our country to have this kind of special language to tell stories, like theater. Beside all the music we have with big names and now even new styles, techno is not that new, it's like 30 years ago, which it's founded. Theater as a special form of culture is really deeply implemented in Germany since, I would say, more than 300 years. Like, first you can read about books about it. In the Middle Age, it was connected to church. It was always used for moral things, to explain the story of Christianity. But later on, when it came with all this classicism, the big interest of rich and noble people towards Roman and Greek empires and the stories of that, it opened up, and it also became something interesting to see for the audience, like the people in the cities. Jumping up to now, not to make a lecture about the history of Germany. What we have now in Germany is, beside these implemented houses, the old theater houses in the cities with their own professional groups and teams, we have many people who are engaged as non-professionals, having an open air stage somewhere in the countryside, having little houses, little groups, theater groups, who meet regularly, weekly, who do just one piece a year, some do one piece for children or performance for children. So there's a lot of people engaged in making theater. And there's a special thing I like on that. Like, I'm a part of this association of non-professional theater makers, amateur theater, we say in Germany. Working in this field, I see that there's a big diversity of aesthetics, of methods, of topics as well, of qualities, of course. And this is, I think, a richness we have in our small country. Yeah.
Okay. Are there the children made practice the theater for early age, from the early age? How is the practice in the schools?
To tell you an example, to say something from my experience in Weimar, the children and youth theater we call Stellwerk, because it's based in a train station, so it gives you a kind of direction for the life when you're very young. We try to make theater with children in the age of 2 years, starting with 2 years. Because it's
At the early age of 2 years,
2 years old.
you begin
Yes.
teaching theater.
Yeah.
All right.
Just for, of course, their parents involved, and it's a way to use the curiosity of children and the way they learn anyhow to grow up, to walk, to speak, to interact. It's this kind of joy to play, which we try to keep and to keep for later years on. So this, what we did over there, is to work in different ages, different groups, and of course with different topics. Because a child of, let's say, 5 years has other needs, other interests than a youngster in the age of 12 or 13. And a grown-up one, let's say a student who's there in the university and playing in the age of 22, for example.
How much are the youth population of Germany getting engaged in the theatrical activities? What's the percentage? Many?
I can't tell you a true number, because
What do you see?
we have a federal system, and in some of our countries, theater is also part of the school career. So when you enter school in the age of 7 or 8 years old, you may have lessons in theater.
An option of studying the theater?
Yeah, like
All right.
you have lessons for biology or something else, or music. Let's compare with sports and music. You have an access to this.
All right. Equivalent to music or science or anything like that. All right.
In some, not in all of these counties, and at least a lot of kindergartens, schools, preschools, they go to visit theater, to visit a show. So many professional theaters prepare special shows for children for these classes. So there's a high contact, and beside this way of becoming in contact with this school. Sorry for the looking for words. Beside that way, there are some groups specialized on making theater with children in the leisure time, like we did in Weimar. But we have also in many other theater groups special rehearsals just for children, to rise up the audience for the future, also to rise up the professional actresses and actors for the future.
All right. So Germany, we study a lot about Germany. And there are a lot of popular figures. One of the most popular figures is Hitler. I don't know how you perceive him. I don't know. I really don't know how Germans perceive Hitlers. But
Yeah.
the way we perceive Hitler is a different thing. Right now, I want to ask you about the history, how Germany was made, because you have aforementioned about the East and West Germany, and it was the era of some 80s,
Yes.
and until 90, it was East and West Germany, right? So after
Exactly.
the 90s, then it was again conquered, or
Yes.
let's say accumulated, what we can say,
Yeah.
right? So can you explain a little bit about our listeners who actually don't know about the history of Germany so well? Because we just know about the political icons, and I've watched a few movies about the let's say World War era.
Yeah.
For example, The Pianist.
Wow. Then
I watched it.
very good.
Schindler's List,
Yeah. Schindler's
related
List.
to that Nazi era.
Yeah.
And another movie I recently watched it. I'll tell you later. And those are the two significant movies I watched. Yes, I remember now. Life is Beautiful.
Life is beautiful. Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
These are the movies I watched. And another, I guess I don't know how accurate is it. The movie Inglorious Bastard.
Yeah. Wow. It's also touching German history, right?
Is it accurate? I don't know. I really
It is
don't.
in a way, because German history is like every history, I guess, like Nepalese history. It is old. That's for me the thing
I
of
want to
history.
take a name, all right?
Yeah.
Nietzsche is from Germany.
Yes,
All right.
and he's
One
also
of the most
close to
influential
Weimar.
philosophers.
Yeah, He was also living in Weimar. So this little city in the middle of Germany has a lot of produced a lot of different people.
Does he belong to your
Yeah,
homeland?
close to, yeah, exactly.
All right, Nietzsche.
Friedrich Nietzsche,
All right, Friedrich
who
Nietzsche.
wrote all
Very,
this
very much popular.
Zarathustra. German history. Let's go not too far back in history. The most important thing for, I think, the whole world was the Second World War.
All right.
Because it affected, like the First World War as well,
Do you want
it
to touch
affected a lot
Bismarck?
of people.
I also
Bismarck
remember him,
was,
Bismarck.
wow, you know a lot. That's perfect. It's a good way to start. What affected a lot of countries, because it was one of the, I think, most horrible and the darkest part of our history, recent history, is the beginning of the 20th century. Is the beginning of it wasn't the beginning, but it was the climax of racism, of oppression of people, and
supremacy as well.
Yeah,
right.
And we, of course, you can figure it out in the person of Adolf Hitler, who was Chancellor of the German Reich, of this construction of a big country we call Germany. He did something which was also did in maybe other countries. He looked for differences in the population, and he marked out who is worth it, who is a good German, who's
by
Aryan,
blood.
by blood. They constructed a way to say it by blood, however, and who's not. And in this way to divide a population, it caused a lot of problems. Like we have concentration camps, we had killing, massacres and all the things, conquering other countries. Still, today we have a kind of influence from that time concerning, on one hand, caused by all these victims, a feeling of guiltiness.
I want to ask you something, all right? We read a lot of dark history about the human civilization in the political, let's say, war era of Germany. Is it real that you are explaining about concentration camps and all, and the white supremacy? Is it real? Is it fact? Is it the fact?
There is no discussion about, and you find the evidences so
Maybe
easy. So
sometimes might be it's a propaganda created by the enemies of Germany. Do you feel like that? Or
not at all. Not at all. Of course, when it's touching a sensitive and a very emotional part, especially if you deal with the feeling of guilt. Then
do you feel it?
Let me finish my sentence, please.
All right.
If you touch like this, people get very emotional, and some groups you like to use these kind of different feelings, and they say it's not true, or it's true, or whatever. No, we doubt, whatever. What happened? What we can see, because we have science, we trust in them. There have different methods. It's easy to follow. We see what history was, and we have open archives. We have a kind of interesting way to deal with history, and theater can also do something to find a way, but it's more in this historical way. Then we don't discuss about whether it's true or not. But some groups who still like, and even German groups who still like to say, we are better than the others. We still have this problem. That's the second thing I would like to tell. Beside guilt, we still have people who like, let's say, to jump on this train, we would say in a silly German phrase, who still like to enlarge themselves and to say, I'm a better person, a better human being than others, because of my skin, because of my blood, because of whatever. And they still use these racistical ideas, which was implemented in the time of Hitler and even before, in Europe, in the United States as well, as you know. So we still are not free of these thoughts. And this is something we carry with that, because we are not a simple German country. As I said, we have different minorities. We have many people, immigrants. We have many people, Germans, going to other countries. So there is no one blood. There's no one color. Those topics are also important for theater. Because in theater, we also have, like in the groups I worked with, we had people from different backgrounds, different countries, different mother tongues. And of course, they're human beings. There's no difference.
Right.
I'm not more valuable than you, and it's of course not. That's a part of it. Sorry if I interrupt you with another question.
Okay.
The feeling of guilt.
Yes. You feel it. And that's the biggest thing.
That's a very interesting question. I saw once in another city close by in a theater that they did ask the audience, but themselves at least, who is guilty for all these bad things which happened? Is it a single person born 2-3 generations after that? Like I'm the 3rd generation after the time of the Nazis. I am guilty for that or not? I did not live in this time. I did not kill anybody. But I am a German by passport. So where is my guilt? And the question, it was interesting. They said, okay, maybe it's just a single person. You're responsible. Not as a single person, sorry. You as a nation, you're responsible. You're guilty. So
Right.
the German nation would be always guilty for that. Or is it just the people who really killed? Like maybe classmates from my grandfather who was born in 1953 when Hitler occupied the power. So is it just them who did really killing? Or is it the whole humanity? Because the humanity, the whole world, let be things like that. And it's not just about German history. It's also about, if you look to China and what happened in the time of the Cultural Revolution, in the time before with Mao Zedong. If you go to Russia and Soviet Union and you see the Holodomor, the people died by hunger because of Stalin and so on. So there are many examples where you can ask, it's more a philosophical question.
All right.
Who has got the guilt? And what does it implement for today? So what we do with that?
All right. I remember a news about Australia some months back. The Australian government, the whites of Australia,
Yeah.
they were actually not the natives. They came from, some of the people came from United Kingdom or USA. But there were aborigines already.
Yeah.
Those were the natives. And some months ago, the government, the state of Australia, formally apologized with those people. They drew a letter of apology for the strict suppression to those native people.
Yeah.
Although these current present rulers were not the suppressors indeed,
Exactly.
but the communities that suppressed them was structurally related to them. So it's a huge. Before this conversation, we had a discussion about structural benefit, how people are structurally benefited, and how people are structurally deprived or not benefited.
Yeah.
And there was a professor. You met him already.
Yeah.
Okay, and he talked about structural insensitivity, how people are being insensible by structure, by the structure. But these days, these things have been turned around, and now people are trying to apologize, trying to feel guilt about themselves, with which the history has deprived
Right.
the other communities, minorities. So it's a great thing.
Staying in that, I can give you 2 examples from Germany. Of course, we had in government Willy Brandt, who was also kind of connected to Nepal history. I think you had a king visiting Willy Brandt, or there was something. One of our chancellors from the Socialist Party of West Germany. He did in... Now I forgot the year. You find it in the books and in Wikipedia, but he did once visit Warsaw. And Warsaw is the capital of Poland, our
Yes,
neighbor's
Poland,
country,
yeah.
where a lot of Jews were killed in the time of Hitler.
Poland was the first country that Germany attacked
Exactly.
during the Second World War.
And he did something, a big symbolic thing. He fell down on his knees on a place, on a memorial site, where a former synagogue was standing. And it was not used in that time that a politician goes down on his knees. It was not written in the protocol. He just did it by its own feeling. I think what our governments, even till today, do is work symbolically, because they're not just a single person. It's not Willy Brandt. He did it for a whole country.
Yes.
And concerning that, it's really about we give symbols. It's maybe I would say like a performance, but it's something like to give a symbol and impulse out to the world. We know what our history is, and that's about to think about, to reflect it, and also to remain it.
All right.
And
All right.
sorry to add a second short example. In these days now, 2023, 2022, we reflect much more about the history even before, like our colonial behavior. Like what did the German country, European countries did in other continents trying to colonize them.
Did Germany also colonize some countries?
Yeah, of course, they were part of the big competition between UK, France.
Can you name some?
Yeah.
Because I don't remember.
You don't have
French, Spanish, and Italian, and much more about English colonizers. I don't remember Germany.
We know it on now just by the big countries, because we know that in Latin America they speak Spanish, or in some African countries they speak English and French as a second language. Germany was mostly focusing on the European continent, but also it discovered or conquered countries which are now known as Tanzania in Africa, Cameroon, it's Namibia was Germany occupied. Also, there were single on Asian continent. There's Tsingtao city on a Chinese territory, which is now famous for its beer. So it's a nice funny thing on the history that Germans brought the beer there. It was a German colony, not to forget part of Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, who also Germans tried to occupy it for the big imperator in Berlin. But with losing the First World War, we lost also these colonies.
Right.
If we could say we ever owned them, of course.
What do you
not.
define the result of Second World War? Is it a loss for Germany, or what?
It's a loss for the whole world. To have a war, it's a loss for the whole world, because there are too many people dying, too many things destroyed, too many ideas, too many love is destroyed. So it's not for a single country.
Technically, Germany lost or Germany won. What do you say?
I'm not in a position to value that. I'm just like to make a bridge towards Nepal. Something I start to learn is when you explain me about Shiva, the god who's somehow connected to destroy something. We had a lot of necessity to build up a new nation after the Second World War. It was destroyed. And for me, it reminds me to something which I can see here in Kathmandu and Lalitpur and other places. You had an earthquake just like more than not even 10 years ago, right? 2000,
8 years ago.
8 years ago. So many things are destroyed, and I see so much power building up now. New buildings, but also the old buildings, the shrines, the stupas, the temples. So this is maybe something positive, if you like to look for something positive.
All right.
That we try to build up something new, and we try to learn. Okay. So now the government of Germany is far away to be racistic, I would say, I hope. Because we reflect on that. That's maybe a good effect.
After the World War era, Germany has transformed itself a lot. Do you want to say it like that? And it's a very good perspective that you explained the war in the humanity perspective. That's what I like the most. Thank you so much.
It's our responsibility, because I'm here not because of my German passport. I'm visiting you and Nepal because of my human curiosity and a lot of privilege that I have a passport which I can travel with. And I have to reflect that. If I would be still sitting in East Germany and the wall in 1990 wouldn't be deconstructed, I wouldn't have no possibility, no money, no passport, and no possibility to come here. So we have to also think about this, of course. But who set us to become a German or a person from Nepal in one of those many minorities or cultures you have in this country. It is not I choose for that. I would say. So I cannot proclaim that I am the rich one, whatever.
So we discussed about the history of Germany in the world, especially in the World War era. Now we will talk about how the war or the political scenario before
Yeah.
in Germany affected the art and theater fraternity. So obviously the political scenario, political activities or the war era might have affected a lot. How do you explain about it? How has it been affected?
If we go back to history and the influence between, or the relation between theater and politics, of course, politics build up the frame for art, and theater as a part of art can somehow play in this frame. When we had at the time of oppression, because of this kind of system of the Nazis, of Hitler, we had a lot of oppression, a lot of excluding people from the society, from theater. There was another theater. It was the theater for entertaining, as well as we know it in Weimar. The focus was laid on German writers. It was built up a nation. After World War II, something changed. There was more a kind of open-minded way to build our theater. We got more influenced by theater makers, like in the 70s, August Boal. So beside classical topics, classical theater, I would say theater became more the role also to ask questions for the society, to build up a new generation, and to criticize what has been before, to discuss about history. In our days, it's even different, because now we talk about other topics, like more about opening the society, including, or also, to give minorities a way, a possibility to act, to be part of the society, to look to, like I mentioned, the colonial history of Germany, and this is also supported by the politics in these days.
All right. It means even in the Germany, the spectrum of art and theater was hugely affected or influenced by the politics,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So Germany, okay.
I wouldn't. Of course, we discussed that art is liberal and is independent, but as a person working in art, we always depend in funding, and we depend on different programs from our government, our politics. So there is a combination. If the government discovers a topic like more inclusion, more integrating of people from different backgrounds, like handicapped people, for example, there is more money, and then we have many more productions, more performances going on this topic on one side. On the other side, there's still a lot of artists and theater makers who try to experiment and try to build up new things.
All right. So Europe, basically in Europe, or let's say Germany, or wherever inside the European continent, it's been said that the Europe is primarily one of the, let's say, earlier practitioners of theater and art. Likewise, we say in the Eastern philosophy, India was one of the biggest places for where literature and art grew up,
Yeah.
was grown up. And in the eastern part, about the theater, that's called a form or a philosophy, or let's say theory. It's called Natya Shastra, right? Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. Likewise, there are a lot of forms and styles, and you can say methods in the western zone. Maybe even there are some specific native forms of Germany. Can you explain those practices which you have been involved in Germany,
I can.
about methods, forms, and styles of theater?
I guess I can do it out of my perspective, my knowledge, which is determined by my experiences. I wouldn't say that we have a kind of German national way of theater in these days, because we are a part of the global community, at least of European theater traditions. What is obviously for me in these days is big joy of trying different forms of theater. Like, of course, my colleagues, my friends, they do improve, they do professional things on one hand in drama theater, they do it in post-dramatical theater, they do it with puppets. Then there's a big amount of including music and dance in theater performances. One thing I love is in these days not just to have the text, like the story from a Shakespeare, a Goethe, or someone, but to enrich it with nowadays experiences, with the knowledge of, we call it the experts of the daily life, like children know how it is to live as a child in these days. I don't know it because I'm an adult. So we try to include this knowledge into our pieces, into our performances. And this is something, we call it kind of aesthetical research as well in Germany, a way to build up more a bridge towards the audience, to look and to research before setting up a performance. Something which is closer to the life of the people we prepare a show for. And I would say if this is something, it can be like Middle European, Western European thing to add for these many methods of art. These many things.
Are theater artists of theater personalities of Germany exploring more and more forms and styles? Do you see it?
I think there's
Are there
already
possibilities?
there's already a high diversity of theater, like all these opera, dance, music, ballet, and drama theater. And now because there are so many companies, maybe because also of the competition and also of the experiences, there are many little ways to try, okay, how can I tell a story? Which ways I can use to attract an audience, and what is interesting to talk about or to play.
All right. How much is the German theater influenced by the international practices?
Wow. Now I would love to have a PhD in theater history and theater science. I haven't. I think we are a country with somehow, for some people, open borders, for some privileged people, open borders, and especially all these artists who come to visit Germany, who settle for a small moment in German cities, who produce something, as well as Germans going abroad. This exchange is valuable like gold. I don't know how to say that. This is something which is the influence. There's always a coming and going, and always enriching of art. So in these days, we don't just have German theater in German language. We have theater in productions in Germany in many languages, because people, especially the audience, but also the performers, they're from different language backgrounds. And it is including also the longing and the research of actresses and actors based in Germany for other techniques. So I found also different ways of dancing, of using fingers from, let's say, the Indian, the Nepali way, Buddhistical expressions maybe, as well as dancing from African countries, all put together to create a show and to tell a story in that way.
Okay. Earlier you explained about those practitioners who are professional and non-professional. Now we a little bit talk about what exactly, by theater perspective, is the professional and is the non-professional. By the method of theater, by the practices of theater, what is called professional in Germany, and what is non-professional? What kinds of activities are coined as professional forms and styles, and what are non-professionals? And indeed, you have explained that you have been working a lot with the non-professional personalities, right? So can you explain a little about the practices methods of those two?
It is hard to give a clear answer, because I have visited some non-professional theaters. They only perform in summer in an open air stage, and they have got technique, lights, and a sound system which is richer and more professional than the one I've seen in our professional theater. So the boundaries are not existing in that way. But we would make a difference that a professional theater is able to pay monthly money to the actors and actresses, and is providing a kind of schedule each month in this way. The professional theaters, I would say, they also take entrance, to take money for entrance, but they do it without getting paid. That's maybe, if you like to put it on a kind of fiscal kind of money issue, that's maybe a way to
Compare.
to compare.
What about the quality?
The quality is a good question. We have, beside this organized professional theaters, which have got a house, which have got a schedule, we also have professionals who studied something, and they work in the off scene. They don't have maybe their own stage. They travel, they provide a show, maybe 4 or 3 in a year. They are professional, but they also have to work beside to make a living on that, because these 2 shows or 5 shows a year are not enough. So it's more diverse than just these 2. Concerning the quality, even in this the field I'm working in, the field of non-professionals, like amateur theater, we call it, there's also a huge range of some groups, like we had in Weimar. We do kind of weekly rehearsal, we do workshops, we do different, we produce different forms of theater. We tried out different ways of how to work with mask, how to do dancing, use music, digital things. Others, for example, in the same region I come from, they don't do that. They just have a textbook and read it together and try to do what's the best. And then maybe they ask a professional to direct them, and that's it. So there's a big difference even in a non-professional theater for having a high quality, dealing with the contemporary ways of expressing something with a lot of technique, digital, movie, whatever, sound systems, and others who do, we would say, maybe like pure theater performance, just playing.
All right. That's an exciting answer. If I have understood your answer, I understood that the question is not about quality, but indeed the way you take the profession, right?
Exactly.
That's the distinction between professional and non-professional.
Thank you for that. That's a nice idea. I like this point of view, because the purpose why to make theater can also be a nice way to compare and to put it in different boxes. Like some Germans like to put it in different boxes. What is put there and there. Some of the people I worked with, they do theater because they like to meet other people. They like to forget their daily life, their work. They just have theater like you would have sport, to express yourself, to meet, to work maybe on your character, on your voice. Others, they really like to make art, even in a non-professional way. So there are different reasons and aims also to make it.
Right. I want to ask you something. Is it possible in Germany to be, for a person to be completely 100% professional? I mean, depending on the theater activities, activities as an occupation. Is it possible?
Yes, it is, and it's, I think, quite rare in Europe, and I don't know in other countries. I don't know how it is.
But in Germany, it is possible.
In Nepal, but in Germany, it's possible that you study theater, like acting. You go to an acting school or study something concerning directing, and then you work for professional theater, maybe a statal theater or a theater of the county, and you stay there, and you have your income.
Okay. So here we connect with the government policy about art and theater. By knowing the history of Germany and the practices there, it's already known that it's a fact that Germany as a country is very, very much rich in terms of practicing theater and art, right? So I have a question for you. The government at the moment, the current government or the government that is on the,
Right.
as a head of state, how serious is the government about art and theater? How serious are they? Do you find them serious?
I think they know about the responsibility our government has got for the diversity of theaters. So the government we do have right now, it's built up by three different parties, and the one who is on this federal level responsible for culture and art and also theater, including theater, Claudia Roth, it's her name. She's from this, we say, the ecological, the Green Party. She, I would say, is doing a good job because she has to feed many, many different mouths with food if it's concerning money. And all the part of culture is also part of the responsibility of each country because we are a federal republic. I think until now, the governments we have in the different countries, different parts of Germany, they struggle with the diversity and the plurality of art, of theater art, because there are many theater houses, professionals. And then also there's something to support the non-professionals. It's a big pot. But as you said, we are a rich country not only in theater, also, and that's the base of our richness, our economic is working quite well. Even though we had many crises in the world, we belong to one of the richest countries. And this is a base also, for having art in this amount, this big amount.
All right. So earlier you explained about some of the activities you were involved to understand the society more closely.
Yeah.
And that came from the theater practices that you did all over Germany and in the different remote areas, different communities. So my question is related to this of your experience, right? So in Germany specifically, how has the theater and art fraternity played role for the transformation of the society, or I mean for social transformation? How is it important? How did it play? What do you say? How has the art and theater been playing the role?
As I mentioned before, the theater is a part of daily life. When you go to school as a student, as a pupil, you come in contact. You can't avoid contact with theater. Later on, for when you're grown up, you don't have to touch theater anymore. But for a lot of people, like immigrants, like different communities, like also people with different specialities, like handicapped people, to express themselves in the way of theater is a possibility to take part in the society. So this is an importance that our little subject, theater, is able to build up a society, and it does. For example, we have not just this official national minorities, we also have people from different countries living in Germany since 3-4 generations who came to Germany to work, to help up, to build up the Republic of Germany after Second World War. They're like people from Turkey, from Vietnam, from Yugoslavia, from many other countries. And if I pointed out with the example of Turkish community, there are people who know different music, who know different ways of storytelling, shadow plays and stuff. They get a voice, and they get also integrated and included in theater productions. So some of our theater, especially in bigger cities, they make inclusive theater. They make theater, in this example, with Turkish-based people, in Turkish language, in German language. So this is a way to include people who are usually excluded by others.
It is done by the theater.
And this is something which is now, since I would say a couple of years, there's awareness that even professional theaters try to open up for non-professionals. So the theater I worked in Bautzen, it's a city in the east of Germany, is also, beside the professional actresses and actors, also opening up with one group or more than one group for non-professionals to include them to bring them to the theater, but also to give them a platform to speak, like you do with your wonderful podcast over here.
All right. The inclusivity, let's say, principle of inclusivity has been highly practiced in the art and theater fraternity in Germany, but we in Nepal, it's very less practiced. I mean, the awareness of inclusivity or practice of inclusivity is very little. Let's say very little, especially in the fraternity of theater and art. We have to confess it.
Yeah.
But since you have been speaking about the culture, theater culture in Germany, I got to know that you have a long history, a long legacy about including minority communities, minority issues, minority, let's say, socio-political activities. Right? That's a very big influencing thing.
I would hope, I would wish that it's like you said, we are just on a try. So it's never enough, I would say, but it's the responsibility of us theater makers to be aware of that. Like now we think about how to include people with different body or mental handicaps into our work to make it possible for them to express themselves. It's a long way, and it's never finished, and we are not on the best level, I would say.
All right. I want to ask you a question about the sensibility of, let's say, discriminations, whether it is in terms of gender or in terms of, let's say, finance,
Yeah.
or whatever, in terms of the societal hierarchy, whatever it is, or in terms of, let's say, supremacy. How democratic is the German theater
In this, what you ask for,
in terms of discriminations?
right? I think we are in a
Is
movement.
there discrimination?
Of course, I wouldn't deny that we have still discrimination because it's a process, and we are human beings and with different characters, and especially in the theater, in this way of hierarchical work. Like you have someone who's directing, and especially if you're on a professional theater where it's about to have a job, so you ask for, can I perform in your theater? There's a kind of depend on something. It's there's a connection, and in this way it can be, and we discussed about like the Me Too debate and something about many also ugly things. So when it's about discrimination, we have to work on that, and it's still a thing to be aware first, to know, to reflect, and to talk. And in that way, I think with all these methods and attitudes of democratical behavior, we are quite on a good way to do that. To know what is your job, but to work transparent. I do it because of when I direct, I like to explain to my group, my team, why I decide for something, and I ask him. And this is something, to avoid this kind of discrimination, to avoid also abuse. And it's going on. It's big work.
All right. There's a frequently talked word in Nepal. That's nepotism.
Nepotism, yeah.
So are people of Germany aware of this word, nepotism?
I think we know it, and we struggle with it because
Is it in practice in Germany? What do you say? Can you confess? Is it in practice?
I try to think in a way. I think yes, it is in practice because there's a thin line between knowing the quality of friends and including friends because I trust them and I know their work, I know their experience, their quality to do, or I support them just because they're friends. And in that way, it is, I think, always a thin line. Whom I'm trusting, I can work with. Some people, they have a brave understanding, and they're really open-minded to invite other people they don't know, and they give them a chance, especially for young people, young teams of theater makers, to give them a chance to try something and to support them. But what we can see also in the big established theaters is that they use a lot networks in a good way, but it's also possible, and this is also been seen, that they use it also in this way you talked about.
Corona pandemic, which affected the entire world. The pandemic had affected a lot of stuffs, socio-political stuffs. It has affected indeed the economy mostly, all right? It might also have affected the theater fraternity as well. So, you as a German practitioner of theaters, how do you see the post-pandemic theatrical activities in Germany? Has it changed? Has the dimension shifted somewhere else? How do you explain it?
It changed and it affected a lot also the theater, because for more something like a year people could not meet in our country, and to meet each other to build up as a theater group a new performance, it's important. A lot of people met online via different platforms and rehearsed on that side, but also meeting an audience to talk with them, to come in an exchange about topics, something we provide, and we like to discuss about the topic, because that's our thing, to make a story and then to come in exchange to that. It wasn't possible. So what happened on both sides is, after a bit kind of opening of the country, after ending this pandemic, we had to look for people. The professional theaters had to look for audience, because what was filled with people, spectators before, was now half full, half empty. The theater groups, the non-professionals, they looked for people going to play, to perform, because many found another topic or lost their interest in doing that. So in that time of pandemic, and also later on, we ask what is our impact on the world as a theater maker? How can we connect again to the people, as the audience, as well as those who perform. But we also learned something which is quite interesting. We learned now how to deal with a situation if it's not possible to meet, not possible to make a rehearsal together or to perform in front of an audience. We just used much more than before digital technology. So I would say we are on a way going back to our skills and our methods, but we enriched them also on several experiences we did with digital technology.
All right. Now we are at the verge of ending the conversation. I've got just a few questions. Let's say specifically, just one question, but I want to add something. Uh, can you explain us about your future plans relating to theater practices? Are you planning something? Can you tell us? Can you inform us if it is possible? If you are doing something.
Yeah. There is something I'm now working, because we talked today also a lot about German history. In the beginning of next year, I like to I like to talk with my grandfather, who's 90 years old.
Your grandfather is 90 years
Yes,
old and alive.
He's still alive.
All right.
He's still awake in his mind, and he's born in the year Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany. So he, as a child, lived in this time of the Second World War. He built up a country which is now finished, East Germany. He also lived in this period of transformation from a socialist country to ours, whatever. To get his stories and to maybe to make something out of that, to connect it, to prepare it for a theater, maybe with his perspective, also the perspective of a young person today. This is something I'm very interested in. Beside that, there are many other things to do.
Have you got any plans for Nepal?
For Nepal, the big wish, and that's also, I have to confess, the reason to be here is to build up a bridge and to stay in a contact, not just to visit and to learn for now, just for myself, but also to build up a bridge. We can exchange each other, we can visit each other, we can perform. I really hope to invite a theater group again from Nepal in Germany on a festival, maybe to work something together with Germans and Nepali people. That would be a dream, and I hope we can work on that.
Do you wish to perform here or do some workshops? in Nepal?
That would be funny. Yes, I would like to. I would love to, but I have to learn some Nepali.
We'd love to have your workshop or any sort of performances that you deal with the Nepalese community, and I hope very soon you'll do it. So now, my final question is: you have been in Nepal for the first time, right?
Yeah,
So it's been a week now, or how many days have you been in here?
almost a week, right?
Almost a week. So, what is the initial primary experience that you came here, and how did you feel? Like the cultural aspects, political aspects, theatrical aspects. You have also watched a play, right?
Yeah, even two,
One or two.
two.
Right. So you're somehow a little touched with the theatrical practices as well, and meeting a lot of theater personalities, and eating different, let's say, food practices, and even some local wines as well, Ayla and
Yes,
all, right?
yes, yes.
So,
Rockstar.
having experienced this society for a week, and this is the first time, what do you have to say about Nepal and Nepalese community?
As much as a small child can say something about Germany coming for a week, which is, to say it in that words, I came quite stupid and still I'm in the process to learn. So what I experienced is a richness, a diversity, something I cannot grab in a week. I will need more than a year to work with all these different experiences, different impressions. But at least if I have to summarize and generalize it in some words, a very, very kind, open, hospital way of interaction towards, in between people, towards me as well. A richness of different, let's say it, colors, tastes, melodies, all this together is something which is mind-blowing and which I did not expect before. And concerning theater, I saw as well as including your play before performed in Germany by a theater village from here. It's diversity as well,
All right.
influenced by different things. So it's a lot to discover, and I'm very happy I can be in contact with you and get some more days impressions of this
Do you
country.
wish to come again?
Yep.
So
If
how much time do you have this time, which you are staying at the moment? How much time do you have?
it's
How many days and months will you stay here?
to say it in one word, nothing, but it's one more week. So in total, I have
just a week.
some 2 weeks all together.
Oh, it's a very little time.
I know. Yes, you're right. Yes.
Even if I go to Germany, I would love to spend some 6 months there.
Yeah, would be
Watching football and all.
you're right.
Right. It's great. It was great pleasure talking to you. You coming from a very rich culture, theatrical culture, and with a rich history, which we even study, read in Nepalese curriculum as well.
Wow.
And we study about World War eras, but I was not so aware about the inner theatrical practices, and it was great to know from you. We are honored to have known about theatrical practices in Germany, and for the next time I hope you'll be bringing a lot of stops about more about German theater and practices. And we wish to watch a play or watch a performance from you as well, and maybe if we are lucky, and someday you will have a workshop as well. So very, very much pleased to have a conversation with you on this Pratirod podcast, which is, you can say, a resistance podcast.
Yeah.
So it was a very resisting conversation indeed, with a new perspective, right? So thank you very much from our entire team, and wish to talk to you again and again.
Thank you so much, because you are the rich people and the rich culture I can have an eye through and just a drop. So thank you for this wonderful conversation. Also, I learned a lot and I have to learn more. Thanks. It was a pleasure.